Hello, students. If you're watching this video, you've probably already watched the expansion of the octet and determining the molecular geometry for both 5 electron groups and 6 electron groups in both cases of the trigonal bipyramidal and the octahedral expanding the octet. So this is just picking up on that. Again, electron groups, lone pairs, or atoms. We talked about the derivatives of electron geometries. Whenever there is a lone pair on the central atom, it changes the molecular geometry and it distorts the bond angle, causing a further squeezing because the lone pairs repel. So when there's a lone pair on the central atom, it causes a greater squeezing between this angle. And we see it even when we don't expand the octet. So now, last video, we went straight to the trigonal bipyramidal and octahedral, and we showed in the cases that the electron groups were all atoms, and we discussed the equatorial and axial position for the trigonal bipyramidal. In this particular video, we're going to continue our discussion for an electron geometry of trigonal bipyramidal, but we'll be talking about the examples that have lone pairs and how this distortion changes the molecular geometry and the shape, but more importantly, where does a lone pair go? Does it go into an axial or an equatorial position? And then we'll do the same for the octahedral electron geometry. When there's a lone pair, we'll discuss the derivatives, how they affect the angles, and the names for those as well. So let's get started. So here I have sulfur tetrafluoride, and I'm going to do the Lewis dot structure for it real fast. So 6 valence electrons for sulfur. There's 4 fluorine, each are 7, that's 28. So there's 34 valence electrons for sulfur tetrafluoride. And if I follow those rules that I've been going over, is I got to pick the central atom. It's the more electropositive, and it's the one further away from fluorine. So obvious it's not fluorine. We are going to pick sulfur. And I'm kind of going to just draw like this because I know where I'm leading to. And I'm going to have my fluorine on the edges of the sulfur, and I have to attach it. So every bond is 2 electrons. So I had 4 bonds here because 4 fluorine. So I'm going to subtract 8 from this, and I get a total of 26 valence electrons left. So what do I do with those 26 valence electrons? Well, I'm going to add them to my outer atoms. I'm going to kind of squeeze this so I make a little room. So I'm going to add them as lone pairs to outer atoms, the fluorine, to satisfy their octets. So I'm going to get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. So 26 minus the 24 I use, I still have 2 valence electrons. So what do? Well, that's what this part of distribution of remaining electrons is. If electrons remain, attach them to the central atom. So I'm going to attach 2 as a lone pair. There's no more left. So if the central atom has an octet, you're done. It's expanded the octet. Why did it expand the octet? Well, sulfur can. And we see that it actually has a formal charge of 0 because there's a number of valence electrons. There's 6 valence electrons in sulfur. There's 4 bonds, and then the 2 electrons in the lone pair give me a formal charge of 0. And that was one of the bonding patterns I talked about in the other videos. Sulfur likes to have 6 bonds, no lone pairs, 4 bonds, 1 lone pair, or 2 bonds and 2 lone pairs. So in this particular case, it has a formal charge, it's happy. So when we're done with the Lewis dot structure, we have to determine the electron geometry for the sulfur tetrafluoride compound. So how do we do that? Well, does the lone pair go in the axial position? Because again, there's 5 electron groups here. If we go back, there's 5 electron groups. There's 4 atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the other electron group is a lone pair. So we have to remember lone pairs repel more than shared pairs. So where are we going to put this lone pair? Because we're still following valence shell electron pair repulsion theory to minimize repulsion. Well, do we want to put it in an axial position or an equatorial? Because that matters. And what we find out, it does not want to go in the axial position. It does not want to go in the axial position because if it does, then this lone pair, all of these equatorial positions are within 90 degrees. So you end up having 3 90-degree lone pair bonding repulsions. If you put it in an equatorial position, there's still the axials will be 90, but these equatorials are further away. So what you end up doing is you only have 2 90 lone pair bonding pair repulsions, and that is the preferred state. So the equatorial position is where you place lone pairs when you deal with 5 electron groups or a trigonal bipyramidal electron geometry. So what's the molecular geometry? Well, remember, you don't take into account when naming it the electron pair, the lone pair. So if you look at this, this is what's called seesaw. Some books used to call it a distorted tetrahedral, but seesaw is more common. And you could think of it as it's got a little seesaw, right? Kid would sit here, another student would sit here, and you guys would go up. Okay, anyways, you get the point. So what if I had 2 lone pairs on a central atom that had 5 electron groups? Where am I going to remove it? I'm still going to remove it from the axial position, not, I'm sorry, equatorial position, not the axial position. No, sorry, equatorial position is where I'm going to put the lone pairs to minimize my repulsion. So when I have the 2 lone pairs in the equatorial position, I end up getting, for my molecular geometry, a T shape. Now, this is going to be somewhat distorted, right? So there's going to be a squeezing of the angle here. So these angles are going to be less than 90. This is less than 90. If I look back here, my angle here would be less than 90, but right here, this would be less than 120. Because again, the lone pair squeezes. So less than 90, because there's no more equatorial atoms. If I have 3 lone pairs out of the 5 electron groups, they're all in the axial, or I keep saying that, in the equatorial position, I'm sorry. So again, I still have 5 electron groups, right? But the 3 lone pairs go into the equatorial position. And even though my electron geometry is trigonal pyramidal, my molecular geometry is linear. And now I've maximized this distance, and it's actually 180 degrees. And there's not a bond angle distortion because they're both equal distance from the equatorial plane. Well, what happens when I have 6 electron groups and I have a electron geometry of octahedral? So I have an electron geometry of octahedral, 6 electron groups, but one's a lone pair. Remember, these angles were all 90. There is no axial or equatorial. So it might look like an axial, but I could just rotate this and it would be in this center line. So it really doesn't matter in this case. It's actually easier when there's a 6 electron groups. But when we name the molecular geometry, as always, the name is going to be different, and this is square pyramidal. And the reason why is you have a base that's a square, and you make a pyramid. So your octahedral becomes square pyramidal when there's 1 lone pair. Now, if there's 2 lone pairs, what are you going to do out of the 6 electron groups to minimize repulsion? Well, you definitely don't want the lone pairs next to each other. So you're going to put them as far away apart as possible. So now this octahedral electron geometry is actually referred to as square planar because you have a square plane. Now going back, What I didn't mention is, again, this repulsion is greater, causing a squeezing. So these bond angles are less than 90 because all of them are going to be squeezed. Over here, because the lone pairs are 180 degrees away from each other, the repulsion doesn't cause a squeezing here, and this bond angle just remains at 90 degrees for the square planar. But of course, I like to tell students, oops, the best way you can get an idea is go to that PhET simulation. So right now, I have 5 electron groups attached to this, okay? And these 5 electron groups, as we can see, right, they're making a trigonal bipyramidal, both electron geometry and molecular geometry, okay? So the angles are 90 and 120. So if I look right above it, there I see the equatorial position looking down on an axial, let's just say hydrogen or fluorine. If I remove one of the bonds, now why am I doing that? I want to add a lone pair. So what happens now? I see that in the equatorial position, this says 120, but this is a model. If we go to a real molecule, you'll see that that's actually less than 120 for the equatorial position. But what it more importantly shows you is that the lone pair is in that equatorial position and not the axial. If I remove another bond and add another lone pair, it also goes into that equatorial position. It's hard for me to pull that, but what I'm seeing is I get that T-shaped that I was talking about earlier for the molecular geometry. If I remove one more and add the lone pair, there I get my linear, and now it's 180. There is no distortion there. So if I remove all, I go ahead and add 6. We go back to what we had before with the octahedral, right? But now let's remove one of these and add a lone pair. And we see now that that lone pair is on the bottom. And we have a square pyramidal or square pyramid, because here's my base and here's my peak. If I remove another bond and add another lone pair, we see that they're opposite of each other, and that is my 90-degree angle. Now, if you don't believe that these are distorted, just go to real molecules and pick one that we know that's square planar. So there's xenon tetrafluoride. This actually is not going to have a distortion because, again, they're 180 degrees. But this is your real one. Let's pick one that might have a distortion. So here's the SF4, the seesaw, or the distorted tetrahedral. And we see that the real, right, we see that the lone pair is actually in that equatorial position to minimize repulsion. But when we look at the bond angles, now we see that they are less than 90 and they're less than the 120. So you see right there, looking down on the axial onto the equatorial plane, that this bond angle here is squeezed and is less than 120. Just like as we rotate this way, the bond angle between this axial and this equatorial plane is less than 90. And you can do it for everything. I mean, you can just play with this and have fun. And then we see again for the square pyramidal, these bond angles are less than 90. So I hope this helps. Again, the PhET simulation is awesome if you don't have molecular model kit. And that is our talk for molecular geometry and derivatives of expanded octets for 5 electron groups and 6 electron groups, the trigonal bipyramidal electron geometry and the octahedral electron pair geometry. So thanks for tuning in.